Hello, everybody. Oh, yeah, I guess that works. This is working. This is fine. I'm just looking at this at OBS. Hi, everybody. It's Laughingboy LP. It's welcome to another episode of DialogBOX. It's been a good, 6 months, I think? Probably. Nope. What do you mean, nope? What is nope? Oh, okay. Okay, that's... You're not ready. So do I need to start over? Do I need to start the stream over, Hyrule, for you? Anyway, look, we've got a fantastic show. I think we won't know until it's over, right? You never know about these things. It's been like a good 6 months. I haven't done my stretches. I haven't done like my exercises. It's been forever since I've done a podcast. I don't even know how to do it anymore. But we're gonna try. We're gonna figure this out together. But with me today, we've got you can find her on Twinfinite. She writes for a video game journalist site. You can also find her on twitch.tv where she streams. We've got ForestMinish here with us tonight. Hello.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me back on DialogBOX. You say we don't know if it'll be a good show until it's over, but you are always a natural at these, and they are always so much fun. So I'm excited to talk some Pokemans.
Yeah, and Frisk is over in the very little corner right there. There.
You know, he always needs attention. So he's like, I heard that you were going to be on a podcast tonight. So you know what? I want in.
I want in. Perfect. He's got some opinions, I hope.
Oh, he has strong opinions, let me tell you.
Very strong opinions. Definitely not coming through you as the speaker for your cat.
I should turn him into a puppet and have him talking for me because he's the real star. Everyone knows that.
That's your VTuber idea there.
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly. My forehead is shiny, so that means it's time to get started. I'm just looking at my reflection. Maybe this is a little too hot. Maybe I'll just turn it down a little bit. Let's go on controls. Thank you for putting up with this, podcast listeners, which you can do so if you subscribe to DialogBOX over on Spotify or wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. If you like mowing the lawn, driving a car, but you want to listen to people talk about video games, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, others. You can probably find
all
them there.
of them.
Yeah, I put it on Spotify and I just let it go. So I have no idea where it goes after that. I know it's on Spotify. Tonight we're going to be talking about some Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This will be a spoiler cast. So if you have not finished the game, but you don't care about spoilers, or if you've already finished the game, you can stick around. Otherwise, I warned you. It's a spoiler cast.
Warned.
We'll probably talk about the end. I didn't specifically have a portion talking about the ending, but if we do, then it covers me. I'm safe. And so are you. And so is everyone in chat. So feel free to chime in with your opinions as well. And maybe if they're cool opinions, I'll read them, or maybe I'll just ignore it. Who knows? So let's get started. We'll do some housekeeping at the end of this podcast because I've got stuff to talk about. DialogBOX is back. We'll hopefully for the foreseeable future, and so we've got some extra stuff to talk about. But I will after we finish this episode. So I just want to talk about the game, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. We've finished it. We've been through it. What has your experience been so far in terms of playing the game? I know you probably had a review copy, so I don't know what you can and can't talk about that experience.
I did play it for review, but I didn't get the game until after it came out. But I was surprised because today when they came out with the Nintendo Switch year in review, I don't know if you went on and saw all of your games that you've been playing this year and how many hours. I was surprised to see that Pokemon Scarlet somehow is the number 2 most played game of my year on the Nintendo Switch because it's the game that came out most recently. So I guess I must have sunk a lot of hours into it in this last month or so. It hasn't even been out for a month. Man, that game's addictive.
I mean, honestly, I haven't really thought about how much time I've spent on that game exactly, but I mean, kind of hoping that number two, I haven't been able to check it out yet, so I will definitely let you know once I do. I got the Twitch recap. I figured out, you told me how to do it. I got that set. I got it all going. I got my free engagement for the day. So we'll wait until tomorrow to talk about Nintendo and Sony and all the fun times I had on those two consoles over the last year. Fun being in quotations in some cases. I mean, I must be 40, 60 hours in.
I think that's about how many hours I have in it too, which like maybe I just haven't sunk. Well, I feel like I've sunk a lot of hours into that, Legends Arceus, Splatoon, but I was just surprised that it was the second most played game for me considering how recently it came out. I feel like it's a lengthier game than a lot of the Pokemon games just because of the 3 paths that you can do.
Yeah.
But then also I spent a lot of time so far afterwards, like shiny hunting and collecting Pokemon for my deck. So yeah, a lot of time sink for it already.
We have Alec and stuff in chat that says 250 hours he's approaching.
Have there even been 250 hours since the game came out, Alec?
I don't think so. I don't think, you know what, time is a construct really. So who knows how much time has actually been. Well, I know they're shiny hunting too. I just finished maybe a couple of days ago the main story campaign, like all 3 plus the final ending.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm kind of like, I could do the gym stuff again, but I should probably also finish my decks and figure out what I'm going to do with that.
Yeah, I haven't done the second gym battles, like the post game gym battles yet. To me, it's kind of weird. It's like, okay, you just beat the game. Do you want to do it again? Like, I don't really know how it's supposed to be that different. But
I mean, typically I've found that they'll just do like, hey, do you want to do it again but harder? And it's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. I can do that. I can be a gamer. But I think right now I just want to kind of spend some time trying to finish out. When you talk to Jacques and he's like, all right, catch 50 Pokemon, come back to me. Catch 100 Pokemon, come back to me. Catch 200. And I'm kind of surprised, like, the amount of catching that you're able to do in the game just in general. And I still didn't have 200 by the time I had finished the game.
yeah.
Like, it's an enormous amount of Pokemon that you can just, like, see in general.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job with that actually. I feel like one of the problems in the linear Pokemon games is how you encounter a lot of the same ones, like route after route. Like, how many times can you run into a Pidgey? How many times can you run into, like a Zubat and whatnot? But I guess maybe that's part of like the charm of the open world. Like, I didn't feel like I was running into the same stuff all the time. It felt like a good mix.
Yeah, and I think for me too, I was like, one of the very first times that Pokemon as a game tried to give you brand new Pokemon at all at once was like Hoenn. So like Ruby and Sapphire, and apparently the story there is like the creators wanted to do a completely brand new dex from scratch, and at halfway through the development they were like, oh wait, no, we don't have enough time to make like a completely new Pokedex, so we'll just bring everyone back. So like halfway through the game, all of a sudden you just start seeing all the old Kanto and Johto Pokemon.
Oh.
Um,
I didn't realize that's why that was like that.
yeah. So like it's really exciting because you see, oh look at that stretch, big stretch. That's a big old stretch. Where are you going?
He wants attention.
But like you see a whole slew of brand new Pokemon, and then all of a sudden you are just kind of bogged down by like repeats. And I feel like Scarlet and Violet do a pretty good mix from the start. Like it's enough to get you excited, but then there's enough familiarity, but it's not the same. Like I think the biggest surprise for me was that there were no Geodudes or Zubats.
Right? I know. They didn't have. I don't even think they're in the game at all, are they?
I haven't seen them. DLC
Which
maybe.
is good. Oh no. Well, no, I don't even think there's like a Pokemon that is equivalent to that in this game. Like, I don't think there's any one that I was like, oh, not that again. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like every game there's something equivalent to the Geodude or Zubat. Like, too many Bidoof or too many, whatever it is in each gen. I don't
I
have that here.
I definitely agree. I think for me, the one thing I really didn't notice was anything where it's like, okay, this has been in like every game. Um, there was some emphasis on bringing back Galar Pokemon. So the you see Roly Poly and
Uh-huh.
Impidimp and Hatteran, like those lines kind of come back. Um,
Corviknight.
Corviknight comes back. I mean, and that's really definitely one of my favorite aspects of Pokemon this gen has been like the interactions between different Pokemon. They haven't really done that in a while. Uh,
Yes.
like so specifically, you have Corviknight and Tinkaton, and just the fact that like we used to do Corviknight taxis, but we kept getting attacked by trolls, so we had to stop.
I love that. I love that they like put in like a lore, like an in-game reason as to why it's no longer Corviknight. Like they thought, okay, we're doing it a little bit differently this time. But instead of just changing it up and not saying anything, we're gonna put this like random line into the Pokedex for Tinkaton about why it's not like that anymore.
And it's really not like it's at least descriptive, but not too much, so it leaves some to the imagination. Um, yeah, Ampharos is back. I gotta love my Ampharos. He punches like ridiculously. Got that ice punch. He's got that thunder punch. Speaking of punches, I think it was really interesting to have like a fighting electric type that like barely learned any fighting moves.
Wait, which one was that?
Palmo.
Oh, I didn't even really use Palmo that much. I didn't even know that he turned into a fighting type.
What was
I
what was your end team like?
Okay, I had my starter, Meowscarada. I had the donut dog. What's his name? Dachsbun.
Oh, Dash Bun, yeah. It's good.
The Houndstone, just because he had that one super strong move, the ghost graveyard dog. I
Mm-hmm.
had Tatsugiri, my water dragon little sushi fish.
Mm-hmm.
The Fire Tauros, so that was the Scarlet exclusive where it was like fighting and fire type. It took forever to find that one, like the Tauros that wasn't just fighting, it was fighting fire. How many have I said? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who was my sixth one?
Yeah, now I have to think about it. I asked the question.
I don't know.
I had
It
Croconaw.
must not have been that memorable.
Damn. I had Croconaw, or why am I? Oh God. Okay, so I keep getting his name wrong. For Fuecoco's like middle evolution, I keep saying Croconaw, but that's Totodile's mid tier. Anyway, I had a Scarladirge, Skeledirge. I had Palmot. I had the engine, the Vavavoom.
I didn't see anybody else use that one. Did you like it?
It was an interesting Pokemon because like it kind of doesn't start off that great. But I was like constantly trying to. So one of the things I like to do to challenge myself is to create a team that's only new. So nothing from
I do the
previous
same thing.
games.
Yeah.
So it helps me like, and I did that when I got back into Pokemon like 10 years ago because there was so much new stuff that I hadn't seen before. So I tried to learn all the new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, there wasn't really besides uh besides the Wooper uh regional exclusive.
Oh, that's who I used.
Oh,
The
okay.
Clodsire.
Clodsire.
That was my last one. Yes, which I should have remembered that because she ended up kicking butt at the very end for me. She was so good.
It seems like Clodsire is very good, and I should have
Mhm.
just stuck with that.
He's a tank.
Yeah. And so I was just kind of like, what if I just had a steel type Pokemon instead of ground? and I can just give it some ground type moves. And I was like, well, it only learns Bulldoze.
It's okay.
It's okay, but like there were times where I definitely struggled in the middle where I was trying to use Pokemon that I think would cover each other very well,
Mhm.
but then I couldn't find any sensible move sets for them. Either wasn't getting decent TMs, or I had to make them and couldn't have access
Right.
to them, or they just didn't learn them. So like Pawmot, I think got better for me over time once I started getting better moves.
Mm-hmm.
But for a while, I was kind of like I could have just gone with like Belly Bolt or something like that for an electric type.
Well, how much did you experiment with I keep calling it bejeweled mode, but the
Oh,
terrestrializing, because that changes their typing and can it like kind of throws things off a little bit if you're not expecting a Pokemon to bedazzle Terra type, and then it's suddenly a different type,
um,
and then it throws off all of your plans on what your team makeup is.
so part of that I had some difficulties with in terms of finding decent ones because half the time, like if you found the little Super Saiyan Pokemon somewhere around, you had to kind of hope that they had a decent like Terra type.
Right.
Um, there was a lot of going through raids where after a while I was only finding like Bonsweets or other Pokemon that couldn't be put into my team. I think one of the problems was like the first quarter of the game, you were dealing with like the same Pokemons in every single raid. So I only saw Bounsweets, like Crabrawlers, and maybe like one or two other Pokemon. It wasn't until more than halfway through the game where I started seeing like, oh, okay, here's for some reason Salamence is coming up, even though it was a special raid. But like,
Oh, okay.
here's some newer Pokemon. Here's like a Dratini out of nowhere. Here's this one. Here's a completely different Pokemon that you can actually maybe want to have on your team. And so it was tough. And in fact, I actually had a Griever that for a little bit that was, I think, Grass Terra. So I'll just have him on my team for Grass type. But even then, like unless it learns Grass type moves, it's kind of useless, and you don't get Terra Blast until way later.
Yeah, that's like way at the end almost.
So I kind of found that to be a problem as well. I think mostly for me it was hard to take advantage of Terra types unless you found one that was the same Terra type as your Pokemon.
Right. Yeah, good point.
I think rounding out that team. Oh, I did wind up picking Smolov for my team.
Ah,
It
I love what it
actually
evolves into.
it has a really good special attack stat. I'm kind of surprised. Like it's pretty useful as a grass type.
That's awesome.
Um, and then so let's see, car engine, crocodile, ghost, um, olive boy,
I love how we don't even know any of their names. It's just like this
fighting
one,
rat.
that one.
I don't even nickname mine, so I have no excuse. And so I'm blanking on the other. Oh, I went with Palafin.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Your excuse is that there is now officially over 1,000 of them, and who has time to remember all of those?
yeah, I didn't get the cereal mascot on my team yet. And
What was
then
your reaction to seeing that? The I call it a cheese stick because it looks like a cheese stick mascot.
well, what was it? It was either you or Miss Fushi. So when we did the stream on my Twitch channel, which you can go follow twitch.tv/LaughingBoyLP. It's no big deal. It's whatever. You can do it. It's free. It doesn't hurt you. You can. So like, I think one of y'all said that it looked like the Applejack's cinnamon mascot, and I
Yeah, it
saw
was
it and I
Fushi
was
that
like,
said that.
that's it. No, that's totally 100% it. It is a 90s like snack food mascot. There's no
Yeah.
other way around it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think the one Pokemon that I really liked its design because of how goofy it was Palafin's Zero to Hero form. I just
Yeah,
thought
that
that was
was so
so
bizarre. Well, like when it evolves into second stage, it looks almost exactly the same except for like a little heart on its stomach or something, a little mark.
yeah.
And I feel like if I didn't know any better, like I would have just not like I would have been like, what the heck? Like, why is it like this? And I wouldn't have known that it has a special form in battle.
Well, the messed up
I
thing
followed
is,
online.
yeah, I didn't even see it online. The messed up thing is that you see the evolution and it's normal looking. It just has a heart on its tummy. And then for like a brief second, you see the Pokedex cover for it, and it's the big hulking dude. And you're like, wait, what?
Ah.
So like I think they did that intentionally so that you would try to figure out like, wait, what's going on with this thing?
Oh, I must have missed that completely.
It's such a split second because it just twirls around immediately and then it just shows you the
Yeah.
book spine. So you're just kind of like,
Mhm.
oh, maybe that was nothing. So yeah, I put Water All Might on my team, and then I'm trying to think of number 6. Oh, I went with Fliddle's evolution, the psychic
Oh,
bird, even though it's not a bird.
see ya.
Yeah, Sia, that's right. Um, it's all right. Like I for a psychic type of its generation, I might have been expecting a little bit more, but like it gets the job done. It learns fairy type moves, but I can see it being really good terastallized. Like I can see some options for terastallizing it and seeing what it can do after that. But before then, it's just kind of like, okay, it's psychic only. It learns flying type moves. It learns fairy type moves. It learns dark and ghost. But unless you like take advantage of it, it's not going to give you that boost that you need.
Yeah, that's a pretty wide move pool. I didn't realize that it learned that many different moves.
Mm-hmm. And they learned the good ones, so it's usable and it has a good special attack. But now I'm just getting way too much in the weeds. So that was mine. And I think I spent a lot of time experimenting before I kind of settled on the team that I had. Did you spend a lot of time like figuring things out or?
I feel like you're a lot more methodical about it than I am. Like you're thinking, oh my gosh, I need to make sure I balance out. So instead of having a ground type, I'll have a steel type. No, not me. I just really like the designs of them. And it just so happened that most of the ones that I picked turned into a pretty balanced team as it was. I think I had a couple of like glaring weaknesses on my team for like most of the while. Like I didn't have a water type for a long time because I got Tatsugiri so late in the game. So I definitely had some weaknesses, but I just go for like the ones that are the cutest or the coolest. And there's a lot of really good ones in this generation. I feel like there were a couple times that I had to swap some members out because I really wanted to use them. I wanted to use more than 6. Like I really wanted to fit Tinkaton on my team because it's so cool. Tinkaton is awesome. But I also wanted to use Darkspun, the little fairy bread dog. Like, how do you pick between them? They're so cute. So that was just my train of thought when I was trying to decide my team, like how good their designs are.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Part of it sometimes I will just pick what looks cool. But then there are other times where I'm like, do I want to have a really easy time playing through this, or do I want to have like kind of a smooth ride? And it was definitely like I feel like the difficulty kind of spiked for me a little bit because I was just trying to figure things out, and then it kind of smoothed once I kind of figured out who I wanted because I was able to level them up.
Yeah, I think the difficulty was a little bit all over the place for this one. It did
Yeah.
seem a little unbalanced, and I think that was just due to the nature of it being open world and not having level scaling. Because I mean, most Pokemon games are not that hard. Like in the past, like Sword and Shield, the most recent ones, I was breezing through them just because of like the experience share being on and uh the gyms not being too difficult. But this was the first time where like I actually encountered stuff that was way too over leveled for me, and then later in the game I was just blowing through the gyms because I was supposed to go there early in the game and I was way over leveled, and then I hit something that was way too high again. So even though it was open world, I don't know. I hope that's something they improve upon for the next generation. That like I want them to still keep it open world, but maybe they could do something like level scaling to make it not so all over the place.
Yeah, I think level scaling would be one way. I think about how, and this actually brings me to the next point I wanted to talk about, but part of it is I think about how most open world games from other competing companies tend to do things, and it really is just kind of here's the main story. We have one main story, and you go through it in order so that you're at the right level when you attempt it. But we're also going to give you all these little side stories, and you can do those at any point that you like, but you might be over or under leveled when you do them.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no real level scaling in other open world games that I know of. But when Pokemon Scarlet and Violet wanted to do this whole thing of like, you can do anything in any order you want, and I feel like that wasn't really true.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I remember doing the Donphan Titan Pokemon as my second Titan, and I think I was still in the high 20s, low 30s, and I just got wrecked.
Yeah, that
So,
one. I found that one early on too. I'm like, oh no, I need to come back here later.
but then I would turn around and I would do like a gym leader, or I think I did the Dark Team Star Captain third. So I had already gone through Mela, I had already gone through the Poison one, and so now I'm doing the Dark Captain, and the game even tells you if you bother to look it up, which I didn't, but it's like he's not as experienced, so he's kind of easy. And it's like, oh, was he supposed to be the first? Like they
Mm.
don't really make that clear, and I think they did that intentionally so that you could explore, but then they
Oh, wait,
don't
where did it
really.
say that? Where did it say that he's
There's
not that
something.
experienced?
It's if you go to the if you go on your map and you select all of the points of interest, uh it will give a very vague hint that the thing you're about to do is either easy, moderate, or difficult.
Oh, I never saw that. See, that would have been really good to know.
Well, they don't really tell you because they want you to do it in any order you want, apparently, which kind of makes me think about how like I think other people interpreted this that you could do any story that you chose and you didn't have to pick all of them. And I feel like that the whole open world concept of Scarlet and Violet is kind of a lie. How do you feel
A little
about
bit.
that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, because I did do it in the order that I wanted, and that order was doing almost all of the gym leader battles and Titan Pokemon before I touched a single star base. And just because that really wasn't all that interesting to me. So by the time I started doing the star bases, I was like in the level 40s and 50s, and that was way over leveled. And so, like, I feel like they want you to do like, okay, maybe like one or two of each before you go on to the next one. Like you're kind of keeping it balanced. Like maybe you do a Titan and then a gym and then a star base and then you do another gym. Like kind of keeping it even. And I definitely didn't. And that definitely probably was not the intended way to do it.
Yeah, and I think too is that so my fiance was playing and she was like, I don't like how all of the stories are focused on just battling. Like all of the stories are focused on battling in some way. You
That's
can't
true.
clear
Yeah,
something unless you battle something.
very true.
And that's one of her least favorite aspects of Pokemon, unfortunately. But, you know, she really liked Arceus because it was more about catching than it was battling. And
Yeah.
it seemed like they didn't want to do that balance of like maybe doing catching tasks versus doing battling tasks. But then if you actually want to beat the game or get a lot of enjoyment out of it, you have to do everything
Yep.
at some point. Maybe Team Star not so much, but like at least two of the three storylines give you all of the storylines give you something that expands your abilities.
Mm-hmm.
With the
Yeah.
Titans, it's the Herba Mysticas that enhance your roaming capabilities. With the oh gosh, with the gym leaders, it's why am I suddenly blanking out? What do you get?
They give you the your Pokemon obey you at a higher level. So if you catch something that's a higher level, it'll listen to you.
True, true. So there's that. And then which obviously allows you to catch Pokemon or like get through that area better. And then obviously with Team Star, it's TMs. You get more TMs. You get like bundles of things that you can use to create them. So I feel like it's not like a total lie that you can't just do whatever you want, but you can't just beat one story and call it a day. You don't get credits until you beat 3 stories plus the final one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, what you were saying, about your fiance not enjoying the battling aspect, I think it would have been really cool if maybe instead of the Team Star, just because that was my least favorite path of the three, that they had maybe a different one that wasn't so battle focused, where maybe they incorporated the catching mechanics from Arceus
Mm-hmm.
and made like filling the Pokedex one of the paths. Like maybe that's not something that you would be required to do to beat the game, but maybe like you were talking about earlier, how like you have the main missions and then you have the side missions. And like I know that you can do that anyway, like on your own, and you get the, I assume, like the shiny charm for doing that. But I feel like making that maybe one of the stories and like fleshing out why you're catching all of the Pokemon a little bit more prominent, I think would have been more interesting and intrinsically motivating.
Yeah, especially since especially in previous games, they try to focus on this idea that like different people have different concepts of what it means to be good at Pokemon. And some people focus on battling, other people focus on catching, and others focus on raising. Like that's literally the trifecta of Pokemon Go. All 3 of
Mm-hmm.
the leaders are about one aspect of Pokemon. So I feel like, and we can talk about that later. But I feel like that's something that they should definitely improve upon.
Yep.
That being said, the gameplay loop was in almost every review, whether it was from an actual like journalist outlet or just from some dude on Twitter, have mostly agreed that the gameplay loop is extremely enjoyable and good. I guess from your perspective, what does that loop look like to you, and then like what do you think about that takedown?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with it. I feel like they put some kind of drug into the gameplay loop because even though I just had a lot of complaints about those 3 storylines and like what they could have done better, the game is so addictive and I couldn't put it down while I was playing, and I beat it and I'm still picking it up and playing it. And I do like the open world aspect of it as a whole, even though I had problems with the leveling system, just because there's nothing that really makes me more like annoyed when I'm playing a game is being held back by like lengthy cutscenes and a lot of dialogue. Like I'm the kind of person that like to turn on the game and just like get going as fast as I can. And I did feel a little bit annoyed at first in the game, like all of that academy stuff that you had to do before they let you loose into the open world. Like that part dragged on forever for me. Where they're explaining everything and all the different paths and all that dialogue. I'm like, oh my god, when is this going to be over? Let me go explore. But just kind of going around the world, and I think riding the legendary. I was playing Scarlet, so I had Corridon. The way that lets you travel a little bit faster, kind of go to more places with each ability that you unlock. Uh, Also, the Pokemon being out in the overworld, I think, makes a big difference because it really feels like you're exploring. It really feels like you turn the corner and you're discovering stuff. It's not just random encounters anymore. All of that, I feel like, is just combined into the winning formula for like, you don't know what's going to come next. Like, could there be a shiny over here? Could there be a brand new Pokemon? Is there going to be a town over in this corner? That lack of linearity is making you wonder like what's next.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like it's just one of those things where you have, if a game can very easily make you go, let me just do one more thing. Like, let me do one more raid. Let me go over here and catch this thing. Let me go find this item. Like, I see something out in the distance and it's big and shiny and I want to check it out.
Yes.
Let me do that real quick and then I'll put it down. And then 3 hours later, you haven't done it yet.
Yeah, well said.
We we had those. I mean, I feel like my 2022 was bookended by one of the worst possible open world experiences I could have had, and one of the better ones. And
Oh.
I feel like Horizon Forbidden West is one of the worst open world experiences I've had in a very long time. And I feel
No.
like while it has some issues that we'll get into, the open world aspect of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is good. It is good. It is motivating. It is like addicting. And Horizon Forbidden West's issue for me was that it was so tiring. The world is so big. You have to go, and it takes like 50 minutes to get from one end of like where you want to be to the other. There are too much dialogue options.
Yeah.
I will spend a good 30 minutes just sitting and listening to a dude talk. Could I
Oh,
skip
yeah.
through the text because I read faster? Yes, I could. But that's kind of not the point. Like
Right.
I want to be able to enjoy that aspect of it. If it's gonna have voice acting, you might as I'm gonna sit and listen to it. Which again, game with too much voice acting, game with no voice acting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
I just think like the difference is like, is it wasting your time or not? Like it sounds like, and I haven't played Horizon, so I don't know, but it sounds like it wasted your time a little bit when it could have done that more efficiently.
yeah,
Especially like you were talking about the movement across the map. Like I know for Pokemon Scarlet Violet, you unlocked fast travel immediately when you're let into the world. So like as long as you have visited the Pokemon Center, like you don't have to wait until you have like a fast travel mechanic. You just automatically have it. You don't have to wait for an HM or whatever. You just do it.
well, there's that, and I think also what I'm trying to keep in mind too is that there's Horizon has its fast world travel, but it also punishes you a little bit for not doing it because you constantly need parts. You constantly need to
Mhm.
craft. You are in under constant survival scenarios. So you have to do stuff. And so if you constantly are zipping across the map, then you're not collecting anything. You're not getting parts that you need in order to improve. You're not doing the
Right.
things that the game wants you to do. And I don't feel that with Scarlet and Violet. Like, yes, I should get parts for TMs, but they're not that restricting, I guess. Like, I don't really like, I'll just say right now, I don't like the TM system in this game. I don't. It's one of
I
my.
don't think I crafted a single TM, to be
I
honest.
crafted a few, but like at a point, I was just kind of like, this is gonna take so long to just like
Yeah.
beat up. Like I'm just committing animal abuse just so I can get the ability to abuse more animals. So like, I don't like how else do I put it? But that's probably one of the biggest negative, barring the glitches and everything. It's probably one of my biggest negatives. But I don't feel like I'm being punished if I want to fast travel, which I did frequently, because it's easy. But I do find myself roaming around the world a lot because that's also easy. So I feel like I can get that good balance of fast travel and not fast travel.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
so speaking of problems, we got to talk about some problems. We got to talk. What happened? What happened with
I'm
this game?
surprised we got this far into the podcast without talking about the glitches and the performance.
I
Like, I feel
had to
like
make
that's
them
the
wait.
first thing. That's the first thing that everybody talks about with this game. So it's kind of a breath of fresh air that we waited this long.
Well, look, I gotta make the viewers work for it. You know what? Well, I'll just put a break in between, force an ad break right there, and then they'll have to wait.
Oh,
Yeah, that'll get views. That's gotta be a record. 40 minutes and we haven't talked about the glitches. Um,
it's bad. It's really bad. Like, there's no excuse.
I mean, what was your experience like? Because it really was just this thing of, um, either you had a ton of glitches or you saw a thing here and there.
Didn't really have like all of the funny types of glitches that you were seeing on Twitter, like well, that's not true. When we were in multiplayer, like
Yeah,
my
yeah.
character's face was glitched and the arms were wild and all of that stuff. But when I was playing through the game, I didn't really have anything that was like too wild, except for my game crashed a few times. So like if I was playing for too long, the game card would crash, like the software would crash, and I would have to like restart the game. And then I just think it was ugly. The frame rate was just bad. The pop-in was bad. The textures were ugly, and it's just like not. I can't defend it because it's not like it's their first game. It's not their first game on the Switch. It's, not the it's just
It's not even like
it's
their first, if you really want to put it that way, it's not like even their first like open-ish game. Like they've
you're
done
right.
large maps before.
It's not their first game with Pokemon out in the overworld. Like, I don't know. And I think the problem is really just being that the development time was way too short. This game should not have come out this year.
Yeah, except it had to because the anime and the
I
merchandise.
know, I know.
It's
I know
too big to
why.
fail.
I know why, but I shouldn't have.
Shouldn't have. I mean, the fact that we got Legends Arceus at the beginning of the year, which is another one of those things that we kind of like not forget, but then we're like, oh, that came out in January.
Mm-hmm.
And then its successor, to a degree, came out in November. Like,
Yeah.
it was just a lot and I assume that by the time the game was gold, it was or for Legends Arceus, it might have been like end of 2021. So it's like not even enough time for that crew to come in from Arceus to help finish Scarlet and Violet, if that's a thing that they do. So it's just a lot to have to expect a company like Game Freak, unfortunately, which it's funny that this is a company that a lot of people are kind of like, oh, Gen 1 is notoriously bad from a gameplay perspective. It functions.
It's so broken.
It functions as long as you do what you're told.
Yeah.
But half of the moves don't work. Half of the typings, like, they just didn't think about a lot of things. Ghost is supposed to be super effective on Psychic, but guess what? They're all poison, so Psychic will just kill them. It's just a lot of things where it's like, clearly this is a game development studio that is constantly like out of their depth. Like Satoru Iwata, the big story of Satoru Iwata coming in to save them from Gold and Silver because they did not know how they were going to fit an entire game. Like, that game was in development hell until they got Iwata to come in and not only fix it, but allow them the extra space to like put in Kanto. So
What a god.
And they didn't have them anymore. So like it's interesting to just kind of see Game Freak left to their own devices, and they're still very it shows. Like, it shows that they still struggle on a lot of things that a lot of gaming companies have been doing for years now. Like, we've had open world games since most of the PS3 generation. It's been a while.
I think the problem is that there's a really great game under a lot of ugly crust, and like you have to like kind of dig under that crust to get to the good stuff. And it's like a little bit of a shame that they're like okay with putting something in that state out. They're okay with publishing that. Like, that Nintendo was even okay with that. But you know what? It doesn't even matter, because did you see how much the game sold in the first 3 days?
Well, and I was also going to say, I mean, the real follow-up question here was like, given everything, and my experience was nowhere near as bad as everyone else. I had one game crash, and I think I never fell through anything. My experiences with the multiplayer were the same as yours for that one stream, and that was mostly it. But did it really negatively impact your experience as on the whole?
No, I still had a lot of fun with it, and I think it could have been a lot better. I think, that if the frame rate was, it doesn't even have to be 60. It could just be like a smooth 30. If the pop-in wasn't atrocious, if, the game wasn't crashing every once in a while, if the textures looked like they were more modern than GameCube era.
I
No,
mean,
I still had a lot of fun and it didn't affect my enjoyment of it. It just kind of makes me a little bit like wistful of like, well, what could this be? Like how much better could this be? Like I look at the graphics and I'm not even a graphics snob, Andrew. Like I look at the graphics in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and just how gorgeous that game is, and it's like
it's not really being a graphics snob. It's this concept that you know that the Switch can do better, right?
yeah, it's not a Switch problem. It really isn't.
Sorry, hold on. I have to bring this image up because
Oh
you're
no.
here and this is your fault. Hold on.
Oh no. I'm worried.
Here we go.
That is my fault.
I mean, but it is what it is, though. Like, I distinctly recall seeing some of those textures. Well, there it is. I'll just get that rid of
Well,
that.
somebody sent me that screenshot of that area in the game, and they're like, this looks like it could be out of Super Mario 64. And I'm like, I wonder what would happen if I replace the character model in Pokemon with Mario from 64 and like put the the game's overlay on it and just like see what it would look like. And yeah, it looks like it works. It looks like it's supposed to be there.
Yeah, it really was just like, and the problem is that we always make fun of them with the trees and everything, and that was kind of annoying during the Sword and Shield era. Um, I still personally think that Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee was probably the prettiest game they've ever made. Like,
Yes, yeah, at least
bar
the
none.
main series, yeah, because I feel like it was stylized, it had a very soft color palette, the character models looked good. Yeah, I agree. I think I don't know if that's like an unpopular opinion or not, but I agree with it.
I just realized that my mouse is just hovering over you like a fly on the wall. All right. Look, we know Game Freak can do it. That's also what kind of becomes an issue, is that we know that they are capable of making things look pretty decent. We also know that they're capable of making things look terrible. So, I mean, the
Yeah.
lighting situation in Legends Arceus was bad, and at least they kind of fixed that by never allowing you to go inside
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
ever.
A little too much. Yeah, I missed that too because I felt like I got to a new town and there was nothing to do there. The stores that existed, you couldn't go in. It was just a shop menu, and it was pretty much all the same shops in every single town. And I don't know, it felt like, and it's a shame because the towns were so beautiful on the exterior. Like they looked really cool. That one town that had all of like the Gen 1 pixel like architecture. Do you
Yeah.
know what I'm
Oh
talking about?
yeah,
That
yeah,
one
yeah.
town?
It's I can't remember the name, but it's where
Oh, me
the
neither.
psychic gym is, right?
Yeah, but it was like so cool, and it's like, okay, like I wish I could have gone in that building and seen what that was, but it was nothing. It was just nothing. It was just a cool exterior.
Yeah, I think it was interesting how it's so exterior focused because it doesn't want to load stuff. Like
Yeah.
clearly it wants to load the map one time and then it hopes that it never has to do it again.
Which, like, I do appreciate no loading screens either. Like, that
Yeah.
was kind of nice just for it to be snappy and, like, I could just go across the whole world and, like, kind of complete the whole game without a single loading screen.
Oh, that's right.
But,
Alec in chat saying it was all for nada, and I like that name because it just sounds like you're saying all for nothing.
nada. Oh my God, I didn't even realize that.
um so yeah, that was the town. But yeah, there's some stuff, there's clearly really really good ideas there.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they had just kept all of the stores to be like kiosks, it wouldn't have been as weird to walk into a bakery only to be shoved out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That is
Um,
true.
there's just simple ideas that they could have done where it was just like, yeah, I don't know why they even gave you the option. I assume maybe that at one point they were like, oh, we'll have buildings for them to walk into. and then they just ran out of time. Like I think Sniper said earlier in the chat, it was like 6 more months in the oven.
Yeah.
I don't think 6 more months. I feel like it'll probably be more akin to like maybe 8 months to a year.
A year, yeah.
And Nintendo has addressed some of these issues clearly with like Pokemon falling asleep and stuff like that. They clearly fixed some of that, but not all problems. We still have issues with frame dip. There's what people are considering a memory leak that could be causing issues. I made sure to actually close my game out every now and then so that I wouldn't have those issues a lot. And
maybe that's why I had all the crashing, because I didn't do that. I put it into, like, I'm the kind of person that if I'm playing a game and I know I'm gonna be playing it later, I'll put it into sleep mode, and then like 2 days will go by.
Yeah, no, that's me 100%. But like
Yeah.
I'm so bad at that where I had to tell myself, okay, I need to close the game so that I maybe don't find any problems later on. And I think I noticed that especially in the last section of the game.
Yeah.
When you go to Area Zero, it is like it was frame drop city. I closed the game, turned it back on, and it was a lot smoother.
Mm-hmm.
So
can we talk about the whole end game part of it? Because I feel like they took all of their budget and development time and great ideas and put it in like the last 2 hours of the game.
I think I want to see what you mean about that. So if you want to talk about that real quick, because
am I jumping the gun? Because I don't know if we're gonna wait for that for later, or if we want to do that now.
No, we can talk about it.
Well, I don't know about you, but I felt like this was the best story in a Pokemon game, especially like leading up in this ending. It got surprisingly dark. I definitely wasn't like, I didn't know what to expect with Area Zero or the crater. Like when I'm thinking like crater, I'm thinking like, I don't know why I was thinking this, but that it would just be kind of like a desolate area with like maybe like very rocky terrain and like not a whole lot of vegetation and life. I was like, yeah, I was like really taken back when it did have, a lot of, trees and a lot of Pokemon wandering around, and it was just this big spiral down. And then as you get further and further down, you start seeing these gems and these sparklies and these weird, like, you're kind of wondering, well, what is down here? All these research labs, like, where are we going, pretty much. But then when you walk into that final lab at the bottom and you see the professor and all of that story starts hitting you, I was like, oh my gosh, like they kind of went, I think, in a darker aspect than they really ever have in the franchise, because they had a character die. Has a human ever died in a Pokemon game before?
They've never, not, I don't think they've even done a Disney death. It's one of the things that I've noticed about the ending in particular was the fact that, like, and again, this is a spoiler cast. It is in the title, so hopefully we didn't.
You were warned in the beginning.
I did. If you joined after the first 5 minutes, well, maybe I'll put a spoiler thing. I mean, it's in the title of the stream. It's in the title. It's in the title. Anyway, so my thing for this is that, like, when before you even go down to Area Zero, I knew something was up. Because I was like, it is interesting that you only see the professor on the TV and then you only hear from her on your phone. You never actually see it. And it's kind of like, is this going to be one of those things where I never actually see the character model? Am I only going to see the professor on a television and that's it?
Yeah.
God, Game Freak. And then I think once they're like, oh, we have to go down to Area Zero, my thoughts are... it's a time machine, isn't it? And yeah, sure enough, it was a time machine. Yeah.
He fell.
Oh, yeah. Are you sure you didn't do that on purpose? Oh, so cute, so good.
He wants attention.
So cute. Such a cute cat. Hold on. Get more of that cat. There we go. Anyway,
no, you're giving him the attention that he wants.
There we go. Full screen Frisk.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think with that, it was just kind of like, yeah, clearly something's going on. Okay, he's bored now.
All right.
Clearly something's going on, and my original thought was that, okay, did the professor, is this going to be one of those things where there is no body? It's just like a computer voice, and the professor got lost in the time machine. And because
That's a good theory.
they do mention at one point that like the time, I think there's like a note journal you can read in one of the houses, like one of the bases in Area Zero, and you can you can go there and read one of the diaries, and they basically say like the time machine that we built is good enough for one person, but we can't bring them back, so we just throw Pokeballs in
Oh.
it. And I was like,
I
okay,
didn't read any of that. You must have like really explored a lot more than I did because I didn't see that.
yeah. So like, there's a moment where you realize, you're in the time machine, aren't you? Like you're lost in time, and I'm talking to a computer. And I think even at that point, there's a glitch, and the professor's like, "Ah, no, there must have been like a communication, like something's on the fritz." So, but at that point, it was very clear. But when you see the robot, you're like, oh no.
Well, what really caught my attention first was when the text box started changing and like it was kind of going wonky a little bit with repeating words and like some of the letters being upside down. I'm like, well, that's really weird. And then it just did like more and more and more of that. And then like when you go in and finally see the professor and like realize like, oh my God, it's actually like not the professor, it's artificial intelligence. I thought that part was cool just because I really like the weird, creepy types of things like that in the game where it's like maybe even a little bit fourth wall breaking with the dialogue box. Like obviously the character that we're playing as can't see the dialogue box or like the, you know, it like glitching a little bit or the letters upside down, but it's just like going to show that it's like getting robotic. It's like malfunctioning a little bit. So I like the way that they portrayed that. And then the room that you go in when you fight with them, the professor just like was the best looking room in the game with how glimmering it is with
Oh,
all
the
the
actual time
jewels and
machine, or
stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
That part was really cool. Like I feel like they put all their budget into the graphics department for that one part.
dude, that
um,
whole final battle is.
well, I want to know what your thoughts were when she or he. Did you play Scarlet or Violet? I
I
forget.
played Scarlet, so she.
Scarlet. Okay, so she, the correct answer, the correct professor, disabled all of your Pokeballs. Like it said, only the professor's Pokeballs could work in here.
Yes.
And you go to throw your Pokeball and nothing happens. Like that was just so cool. And then it makes you go into the inventory to like
Yes.
try to select a new Pokemon. Like, what was your thoughts on that?
So that is such an old JRPG trope, but I love it. Where you have to like go into the menu to do something, and that actually starts the final battle. I mean, I feel like the game tried to make it as obvious as possible without like just giving it away. And I almost instinctively knew what to do at that point because I was just kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm gonna have to like use Koraidon because um somewhere in the game they specifically say that it was Professor Sada's or Professor Turo's
Yeah.
ball that was used to capture the Koraidon. And I feel like it was also one of the better explanations I've seen in terms of like why this Pokemon looks related to another Pokemon. And the fact that like
Mm-hmm.
Koraidon is the prehistoric version of Cyclizar, and that Miraidon is like the future version. And then that's how you also explain all these other Pokemon. So like depending on what version you play, so that creates version exclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. So yeah, I feel like a lot of that final battle was really cool. I There was like a kind of like a somberness to that battle because the professor's AI knows that this was the wrong choice, but it's like the ghost of the human professor is trying to come through with the computer saying like,
Yeah.
this is what I wanted, this was my dream.
not even the ghost, but like what was literally left of her memories or consciousness inside of that AI. Like
Yeah.
there was only that little bit left that was like kind of fighting, like, this is what I want.
Yeah. And it's just, it creates this very like sad thing that also, like, I keep saying like a lot. But it made me go back and think about all the previous things, because I feel like in terms of motivation, this is the one thing that I think Scarlet and Violet doesn't do very well, is the initial motivation. I don't really like Nimona. I don't really like Arven. Penny
Really?
exists. Well, so when you first meet Arven, he's just like, stupid Pokemon. And
I hated him at first, but
Yeah,
he ended up
exactly.
being one of my favorite characters by the end.
And that's one of the things, is that it makes you think about like, oh, well, okay, I get that he's like, you know, he's upset because his Pokemon is gravely injured. And then you realize that the Mabostiff was injured by the enemy Koraidon, and he views Koraidon or Miraidon, depending on the version you play, as this like thing that kept his family away. And so it adds so much context, and you're just kind of like, okay, I do like you. Nimona kind of stays the same. She's just Goku the entire time. Like, there's no difference there.
She had zero character development, but I still ended up really liking her.
Like, there are parts that make me laugh, especially when it comes to like, oh, it's cute that like, even I think Gita at some point was just kind of like, I think she's more happy for herself than she is for you.
Yeah.
Because now she has somebody that she can fight and maybe lose against. But in terms of like her character motivating you, it's not really that good of a motivation. You just kind of do the gym stuff because you've always done the gym stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that could have been better.
Yeah, and Penny was just Penny. I also feel like the issue with a lot of the motivation in the game is just kind of like, you are going through the motions, but then when you get to the end, they even make a point to tell you like, oh, well, your journey, you didn't actually go on your own journey. You went for a journey for your friends. Like, that was your experience, was that you were doing all these things for your friends. And I was like, I mean, that's cool and all, but I kind of hated them at first. So
yeah, I feel like there was no path that was ours. It was like, okay, like what is the treasure that you're gonna find? And you have like on one shoulder you have Nimona telling you, oh, you're gonna be champion. Do it this way. This is the best way. On the other shoulder you have Arven, who is like, no, the treasure. You have to help me find these Herba Mysticas. Like, that's gonna be your treasure because that's my dream. Yeah. And then you have on, I guess if you had a third shoulder, it would be the professor and Penny, Cassiopeia, saying, oh no, like, your treasure has to be defeating Team Star. And like, you're kind of playing out everybody else's dreams, but like, you never really realize your own.
Well, I guess it makes sense since you are kind of a blank slate. Like, what are your dreams really? Well, my dreams are doing everything for everybody else, I guess. So.
Yeah, doing everybody else's
in the
chores.
service of others. That's my dream. The Team Star stuff went deeper than I realized when bullying got involved. I think that they did some interesting stuff there. I feel like I was expecting way worse from what I had heard. And yet I still feel like that Team Star thing was very awkward. Yeah. It's basically like, okay, here's a group of thugs, but then you find out that they're actually all people who were bullied, and then you realize that not only did they stand up to their bullies, but it backfired. And it was kind of like, well, as soon as we stood up for ourselves, they screamed and ran away. And I was like, what is the message you're trying to tell me here? Yeah. So it was kind of, I feel like the Team Star like ending was a bit awkward.
I agree. I feel like it was just getting good, and then the ending was like, oh, okay, I guess that's what happened. I also find it really weird that the dean, or whoever, what was his name, the one who was being
Clavel. Oh, the original
Clavel.
one.
Yeah, no, both. Yeah, that guy. He was dressing up as a student to like spy on them and like kind of stalk them and see what they were doing, and I just like that part just kind of skeeved me out a little bit. Like, why are you doing this? Like, why is it that important to you?
I mean, it was
like,
very...
They're skipping class on like your esteemed university. Like, just like expel them.
Well, and the fact that he like tells people that, you know, you could get expelled, and it's like, by who? Clive? Um,
Yeah, exactly.
and just the fact that, I mean, there are parts of it that I did enjoy that was played for yucks. Just the fact that every time he shows up, you can be like, "Hey, Clavel, like, sup, director?" And he's like,
I did
"What?
that too.
What? No, I'm totally like one of you kids. Like, you're not fooling anybody." But
No.
then when Penny's just like, "You were the director," and you're just like, "Are you that dense?" I mean, it's fair. She probably didn't have her camera on or anything, so.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there were parts where I was just kind of like, I think the Team Star story had some good, funny bits, but it kind of falls flat towards the
Yeah.
end.
And cool characters that I feel like we didn't end up really doing anything else with. Like, I thought all of the Team Star leaders were really cool, and they had
Yeah,
really cool stories that you got like a glimpse of.
yeah, I
But then it
agree.
like none of that really mattered afterwards.
Yeah, and I think my other gripe was that the game, when it comes to the gym leaders, kind of does them a disservice because they're all interesting and unique, and some of them you get to spend some time with, but you'll never think about the bug gym leader ever again.
Oh. I couldn't even tell you who it is right now if you gave me
No,
$1,000,000.
she's a baker. That's because
Oh yeah.
you eat a cupcake, and it's like, okay, great. But like even Brassius, you'll see at the school if you bother to go back to school and do the classes and take your midterms.
I didn't, because why would I want to play a game where I'm back in school? I'm out of there. I want nothing more to do with it.
I yeah, I did it because I was like, what does this do? Like, what does this get me? And it gets you experience candy, you know, okay. But it also gives you the skits that you can do with the professors, which allows you to flesh out their characters a bit more. And again, it's kind of like I wish that they had given this kind of attention to the gym leaders as well, because that's something
Yeah.
that all Pokemon games have failed to do, in my opinion. Is that
Yeah.
they have such cool gym leaders and they are so varied and interesting and caricature like esque, and then you don't really get to spend any time with them because they're just
Yeah.
bosses that you fight.
They have very inspired designs. I agree. No, I didn't go back to the school to do anything because I spend 8 hours a day every day in a school, and I don't want to spend any time in a video game in a school.
Yeah, I mean, if a part of me was just kind of like, I'll just do it for completion, and I wanted to see what it did. It does teach you some things that you otherwise wouldn't know, like especially when it comes to sandwich making and certain aspects of raids. Like if nobody told me and I hadn't gone to school, I wouldn't have known about that. Like in some aspects, how to do the terastallizing in order to deal with 3-star and above raids.
Right.
There are just some things that like if you don't go to that school, you don't have to ever do it again. Like it's not annoyingly part of 100% completion. But it was interesting to do that first time just to see what it was supposed to do. I think the only waste of time really was the foreign language teacher because he doesn't actually teach you anything about Pokemon. He actually like talks about language.
Wow, really? I might
Yeah,
go back and do some of that stuff if I'm still able to.
as far as I
Just
know.
just to
Yeah.
see what it's like.
Um, so let's move on. So I think despite a lot of the issues and despite Nintendo like addressing these issues, we did already say that the game sold millions upon millions and is probably, I think it has dethroned Animal Crossing as the best-selling Pokemon or Switch game of all time, or at least over the
But yeah,
first
the
3 days.
fastest selling like over
Fastest
the
selling,
first
yeah.
week or something.
So, what do you think that? Why do you
Interesting.
think that is? Like, why, knowing what we knew before the game launched, why do you think it sold so well?
That's a good question because it's not like it was even the first game on the Switch. I think definitely the fact that like the Switch has sold so many units at this point, like it is one of the best-selling consoles of all time. It's like Nintendo's I think like second or third best-selling console. So like we're at the point where everyone has a Switch. Like obviously all of like the regular Pokemon fans have a Switch by now, and then like you have other people who might not normally be playing Pokemon have a Switch. And I think Arceus sold a lot of people. And I think the open world aspect sold a lot of people. Like, it's finally something a little bit new, it's something a little bit different. I know a lot of people who haven't played Pokemon since like Gen 3, Gen 4, and like they decided to get this game because it looked a little bit different and it's, kind of challenged what people thought of Pokemon after hearing so many things about Sword and Shield. And I just think they did a good job with marketing that. And the hot professors, everybody wanted to buy it because of those. No, I think that it was just kind of the perfect storm of like combination of things.
Yeah, I think, and that's. God, were you? I think you were on that episode when we did the Animal Crossing one, like a couple of years ago. Was
I
that?
think so. Yeah.
And I think we had the same conversation of like, this was one of the best selling games on Switch. And I think we owed a lot of that to the pandemic. We owed a lot of that to people buying Switches during that time. And then, you could say to some degree, Pocket Camp got new people adopted into the Animal Crossing ecosystem. But like Pokemon's been around for 20 some odd, 25 years, 26 years, and was a hit from the get-go. Had its ups and downs over the years, but it is still very interesting to see all of these Nintendo Switch games, first party or otherwise, like just continue to balloon in terms of sales and how fast a lot of their games do sell.
Yeah.
So like there is a part of me that is just baffled, but not surprised. I assumed that it was going to sell anyway, because they did spend a lot of time marketing the game. You had the 25th anniversary last year. You had the sound, not the soundtrack, but like the album, the 25th album with all these different, popular artists of the time making music for the franchise. I feel like that puts a lot of attention onto the franchise in a big way. And, with the only voice acting being Ed Sheeran singing during the credits, you do get probably a lot of people paying attention, and they already own Switches now, so I might as well just go ahead and buy this game.
Yeah, I think those are definitely contributing factors as well. I didn't even consider the music tie-ins. I feel like I completely disregarded like I think it was the Ed Sheeran one this time. Didn't they had the Katy Perry one? I think you said
They had the Katy
they
Perry
did a couple
one.
of the Katy Perry ones, and I wonder how many like casuals that brought in, like people who wouldn't normally be playing Pokemon, who are like, wow, like this game might look really cool. Like, I already have a Switch because everyone has a Switch right now.
Yeah.
And maybe they want to try it out.
So on top of that, what we've talked about things we didn't like already, but what did we ultimately like about the game?
Besides like the addictive gameplay loop, just the good Pokemon designs. I feel like I am a sucker for like the gotta catch 'em all, like collecting, filling out my Pokedex. And I feel like they really hit the nail on the head with the designs this time, with things that they've never done before. Like, what is a better concept for a Pokemon than two mice that evolves into four mice? Like,
it definitely has the most interesting, not only the most interesting like Pokemon sets. Just love that cat. I love him so much.
He is so annoying. I'm so sorry.
I can't. Don't apologize. Look, I'm just hold on. We're gonna yeah. You can see him on the left hand side. There we go. Yeah, let's.
He's trying to record a podcast and he's breaking my curtains.
One of the things that I think I really appreciate about this game is that it does open world better than Breath of the Wild, in my opinion. It is able to give you that narrative storyline. And one of the other things, I'm just shocked at how many issues there are with the game technically, but how many things that they actually really improve on overall. Mm-hmm. Like the storytelling is way better than they've ever done before.
Yeah.
The open worldedness that goes with that storyline, it's not linear to the point of hand holding, but it's also that's true. A Pokemon evolves because it died. um, I mean that it's got some of the better evolutions in the series, in my opinion.
It does. It really does.
So it's got that going for it, but like it does things in a way better way than it has any right to from this company. Considering that I would say Sword and Shield is extremely linear, and it told one of the worst stories I've ever seen in a Pokemon game. So
yeah.
and
I feel like they really took a lot of people's criticisms from Sword and Shield to heart. Like a lot of people complained about what the wild area was like, and they fixed that to make a better open world. People complained about the models. Remember, everybody was saying, oh, they reused the models. Like, why couldn't they have added all of the Pokemon in the decks if, they're just going to be reusing the same models from Sun and Moon anyway? Well, the models are really good in this game. Each of the Pokemon have, unique animations to them. When they swim in the water, there's unique animations. Like, some of them have a lot more detailed textures. Like, if you look at Ursaring, like, it actually has fur instead of just being like a blob. So I think they really took that to heart and fixed a lot of those things.
Well, and I really appreciate that it wasn't a fluke either. Like, we saw it with, I think, Magnemite in one of the early trailers, and it's like, wait, is that metal Pokemon? Does he look like metal to you? Like,
yeah, it looks shiny. Weird? It actually looks shiny for once.
And then you see like up close textures of other Pokemon in additional trailers, and you can kind of see like, oh wait, hold on, they actually have fur-ish. Like they're furry. Like they're not super furry. Like it's not like Frisk furry as he walks across the screen again, but it's like there's more attention to detail. Like
yes.
Which then, again, kind of makes me feel weird because the mountainscapes look like crap.
Yeah, and I will say the character models had very good textures. Like, if you looked at the character, like the people character models, like their clothes were very, very detailed.
Yeah.
But you're right, the environments were like...
well, they're no clothes!
The complete opposite. Yeah.
You only wear your school uniform and that's it!
Oh my god, that was another thing. I could go on about the lack of customization. That was such a disappointment.
I like how we were supposed to talk about things we liked. But no, we're just going back to the things that, we're going to have to pay for clothes, I guarantee it. It's going to be paid DLC.
Probably.
So, that being said, again, and this is a great segue, but like, what do you want to see from DLC going forward? Like, I would like to see at least a free... I would like to see
He's
at least
been turning off my computer. He jumps on top of my PC and turns off the computer. And
it's time to go.
He's gonna do it. No,
it's okay. It's okay.
No, I do want to see like a lot of those things that I was missing. I would love if they did what they did with Sword and Shield and they just add more Pokemon back. Like we had like 400 something in this game. Give us a lot more of the Pokemon back. I need my Ninetales back in the game. I want them to add clothing. Give me my customization back. Maybe we graduate. Maybe we're not students anymore, and we're actually able to like wear our own clothes. And then maybe they introduce a fourth path. Like maybe they're like, okay, like now we're gonna do like another treasure hunt. It's like the next year or something, and there's some other kind of quest that we get to go on. I know a lot of people are very hopeful about the northeastern part of the map being a little bit like open. Like, what's beyond the mountains? Oh my god, France is supposed to be there. Is it Kalos?
Yeah.
I would not hold my breath for, anything like that. I feel like we do this every time where we think, oh my god, this is going to be the gen where we get, the second region. I even remember them saying that for Sword and Shield, like that it's England. What is right across the English Channel? Oh my god, it's Kalos.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think that maybe they'll introduce like a new area for us to explore. That's like part of a new mini quest.
Yeah, I think if I want to curb my expectations, then I would probably assume that what we would get is more so akin to like an extra, like an Isle of Armor or a Crown Tundra.
Right.
But man, would it be interesting if instead of a Gen 5 remake, you just go to Unova for like a minute and a half. We're just gonna put America next to Spain now. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Like, just don't think about it too much.
And you wanted to lower your
And
expectations.
look, I wanted to, but I didn't mean I was successful. Uh, so yeah, in terms of DLC, I think that's what my expectations are.
Yeah.
Um, but I also think that it would probably also be just prudent for them to consider what would a Gen 5 remake be if that is indeed the path that they're going to go to eventually. If
Mhm.
they decide to revisit a place like Unova, I'd almost rather do a sequel versus um, playing Black and White again.
They did
Um,
do a sequel. It's called Black and White 2.
Black and White 3.
They could.
Or just give me DLC for the current game and then just never mind. And then you can keep improving on this engine that you have
No,
trouble
but I hear you
maintaining.
because I feel like a lot of people were pretty disappointed with Brilliant Diamond
Oh, it
Shining
was
Pearl.
very, very bad. It was very, very bad. I bought it so I could
Because
get the exclusives.
usually, and by usually I mean always, the remake is usually in the same graphical style and like gameplay style as the generation that it's paired with.
Yeah.
So like Fire Red and Leaf Green kind of looked like and resembled Gen 3.
Yep.
Heart Gold Soul Silver kind of resembled Gen 4, Brilliant
Yep.
Diamond and Pearl, and so on and so forth. And I feel like we didn't, not only did it not look like it, but it didn't share the gameplay gimmicks as Sword and Shield. Like it didn't have Dynamaxing, it didn't have, any of the things that Sword and Shield had. And I feel like that is a step back. Like it didn't have any of the, the new Pokemon. Like I remember Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire let you eventually have Pokemon up to Gen 6. And Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl doesn't do that. Like it's just kind of a letdown overall. So I think you're right that they really need to think about what those Gen 5 remakes are going to look like in a few years from now and really think about, well, how can we incorporate what we did right in Scarlet and Violet and put those mechanics into it and make it look like it and like just make it good. Because those games really deserve a good remake. Like those are so beloved, and I feel like if they mess those up, they're really gonna lose people's faith in remakes.
Yeah, I mean, or they can just give it back to Ilka and we'll see what happens.
No, we're not gonna do that.
I mean, Ilka even helped them with Scarlet and Violet, so we see how that turned out.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that like instead of doing stuff like that, I wouldn't mind if they did another Legends game or maybe
Yeah,
they like explore.
absolutely.
I really want them to explore Gen 2 with Legends, like really
Yeah.
deep, go deep into like the history of Johto, do a Legends Celebi.
Hmm.
And they could even do that for Gen 5. I know that generation is really rich with lore. So I hope they do that.
I mean, honestly, they could just do a Legends game of Unova that takes place in between 1 and 2, like the 2-year gap.
They
Um,
could.
they could. And honestly, I would much rather see that instead of doing remakes because I feel like the main point of the remakes wasn't really to like play the same game again necessarily. It was to experience the same area or catch Pokemon that you couldn't get in another game so that you could have a full set.
Yeah.
And I feel like a Legends game fits that quite nicely and allows them to continue expanding on their engine rather than constantly looking back and creating a whole new asset just for a remake. I
That's
feel
true.
like a Legends would be great, or yeah, and I sniper in chat saying let's go Johto. Eh, I mean, let's go is great. I hate the catching mechanic in Let's Go.
Yeah.
It's very,
I
very
think
bad.
if they refined that and maybe made that one of the options, but did everything else the same, because we were talking about how it's such a nice art style. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. I think
I mean,
they're still
BDSP
trying
could
to
have done
find that
that.
perfect. They
BDSP
could
could have
have.
looked like Let's Go. And instead
It
it
really
looks
could
like
have.
this awful mishmash of both the original game and Let's Go, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, that played worse. So
It's a shame.
this is what we got. Um,
So yeah, I hope they go, I hope they do think about that because I don't know. I don't want them to make the same mistakes.
Exactly. And honestly, it's almost why I would rather they just do DLC rather than doing a remake too, because it's like same game. You're not like necessarily getting a whole development thing going on. Um, I mean, I don't know as much about timelines for game development, but doing things in bits and pieces rather than and lowering that scope rather than trying to build up from scratch might wind up working better for them, I would hope, in the long run.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're already thinking about it now. Like they might already just be wrapping up the whatever the DLC is going to be for Scarlet and Violet, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're already starting to develop a black and white remake.
Yeah, considering how they've been doing this cycle, I would not be surprised if we see an announcement of something in February, since that
Mm-hmm.
tends to be when they announce their next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, we'll see. I would hope it's just DLC, and I hope that they address a lot of the issues that Gen 9 has before we move forward with something else.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's how they did it for Sword and Shield. I think around like the Pokemon Day time
yeah,
frame, they announced that there would be DLC, and I think the first wave came out in June.
it did.
So I'm expecting a similar timeline.
Yeah.
I don't think there will be a new Pokemon game next year. I think it'll just be the DLC.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we'll get, if we're lucky, we'll get 3 DLC. I mean, we could just expand on each character again. Penny and Arvin and Nimona. Maybe Nimona actually gets some character development. Who knows? What would you like to see from a Gen 10? We'll close this out with the future.
Ooh, Gen 10. Wow,
Yeah.
just the name of that is like I never would have thought that. I mean, child me would be so happy to know that Pokemon is still going 10 generations later. Um, man, I think that like they're at the point where they have really hit the they've hit a lot of really good things in this generation with 9 with the open world, and I don't want to see them go backwards with it. I think I would be a little bit disappointed if they did go back to a linear style, but I don't want them to just recreate it. I think that it would be a good idea if they refined it with a lot of the things that we were talking about today. Clearly the open world isn't perfect, but it has a lot of potential, and they've really mastered this gameplay loop. Um, so I hope they keep the open world, but do something a little bit more ambitious with it.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is, but
I mean, I think I agree with that. I don't see them. I don't see myself wanting them to go back. I think even, and that's the thing too. It's like with the remakes, you would potentially see them going back to the older linear style, unless they try to massively expand or change Unova. But I think again, I'm looking for maybe a Gen 10 could just be a tread back to like it would be a black and white 3 or going back to a previous region. Um, I'm not exactly sure what region I would even want to see them try to tackle next in terms of like
Mhm.
real life comparisons. But I
Ooh,
also
I want Australia
Australia. Well, yeah, that would work. Except they
or
need to
somewhere in South America.
South America. They'd have to fix their ground textures and their
Yeah, they
rocky
would.
side. They got to
They
fix that
would.
Mario 64 filter. Yeah, I would like to see more open world. I think that's really working for them in terms of being able to tell that story. Um,
Mhm.
I I think I really do enjoy the online experience, so I definitely want to see more of that.
Yeah.
Um, I just I really don't know. I think I would like to see them focus on if they want to continue that linear storyline so that there's no level scaling. I think that's fine.
Mhm.
But I would like to see them maybe try to perfect that angle and not really tell you that like, oh, you can do anything in any order you want, and then you really can't. So if they wanted to do storylines, 3 different storylines like they just did, and they were just linear, but the world itself was open and had the same like euphoric uh, attitude of like, let me go see what's over there and let me go do one more raid or let me go catch this one Pokemon.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think all of that is done really, really well. So I think I would like to just kind of see them tweak that story or that linear / non-linear experience.
I completely agree.
And especially I would really like to see them maybe go back to the Arceus catching mechanics. Give me the
Yeah,
ability to just
even as
catch
like
it if
an
I want.
option.
Yeah.
Just make it an option. You know, I think they can incorporate both because I feel like Arceus was a little bit too much catching, like battling took a backseat in that game,
Yeah.
and vice versa in Scarlet and Violet. So I feel like if they found a way to really mesh those together and let you do both, that would be perfect.
I mean, honestly, if they just got rid of Let's Go as its feature and then just changed it to a straight catching mechanic,
Mm.
but then you're still throwing, like, if you use R, you can just catch a Pokemon. If you use ZR, you send your Pokemon out and it can collect things from trees like an Arceus does. I feel like that would be like instrumental to like complete that experience, to give people the option to catch if they don't want to battle.
I like it. I would be up for that.
So we are at an hour and a half. That's the sweet spot for me right now. So hopefully not much longer than that. Thank you so much for being here with me on this delightful journey back into podcasting. It's been a very, not for you, but it's been a long time for me. It's been like 8 months. Did a Zelda tier list, and boy, that for some reason turned me off of podcasting for a while.
Oh my gosh.
So for now, as I thank you, can we talk about what's going on with you and what's going on in the world of ForestMinish?
Oh my gosh.
Streaming or otherwise.
Yeah, so I am trying to get back more on a consistent streaming schedule. Hopefully I'm going on winter break for work soon because I work in a school. So I'm hoping I'll be doing some more streaming on my Twitch channel at ForestMinish. As always, you can see my writing at Twinfinite, and I'm always posting random gaming stuff on Twitter. So chat with me about video games on there.
All right. And then just for a little housekeeping from my side, we're gonna keep this gravy train rolling. If you're happening to go to MagFest in January, first weekend of January, there will be a DialogBOX panel, and I will be joined with Proton John there, so you can catch us talking about the awful experience of buying video games on the gray market and just watching two dudes complain about buying games for an hour, because that's as much time as I told them that I would do the panel for. Hold on, what day is that? What time is that? I have it somewhere. Oh wait, I'm on Discord. No, hold on, I'm gonna cheat because I got the camera on me. They can't see what I'm doing right now. Let's see. Where the hell did I write it? Oh man, sorry. Both audio and video listeners, you're just gonna have to put up with this for a second. Friday, January 6th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come hang out with us. We'll talk about how awful buying old video games is. And then I promise to take John with me to go buy old video games afterwards, so we won't learn our lesson one single bit. And then we'll be doing our end of year special where we talk about the games we played. That will be streamed during January. So if you're not busy, Rebecca, in January, let me know.
I know you're trying to get me to go to MagFest. I'm thinking about it.
MagFest and we'll do another episode later in the month.
Wow.
And we'll talk about the games we played, because we did that last year. I think that was a lot of fun.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'd be up for that.
So I've got 2 whole episodes in the barrel, and then I have to figure out what the hell I'm gonna do for the rest of the year. So, but
Love it.
That will be future Andrew's problem. For now, thank you guys so much for listening, Rebecca. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you guys next time. I will probably see you. Well, who knows? I at least will be there in the next episode. Goodbye, everybody. I have to I can't even press the button there.